Well, good morning. So wonderful to see you. I know it's a different time zone for you, so good evening as well. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patty. It's lovely to see you. Really lovely. Yeah.
So, as you know, we're now talking more and more about aligning to our best self, aligning to who we are at our best, and really focusing on our inner journey and the work we're doing. How does that align with the work you do? And tell us more about the work you're doing and the journey you've been on.
Where to start? So I think that starting in the inner has been my journey. From a very young age, I've always been curious about myself, and that led me on a very long, winding journey. First outwards. I think many of us go outwards. We go on journeys across, travel all around the world. That's what I did. I traveled around the world for quite a number of years, 3 or 4 years. But in the end, it drives you inwards. And that's what happened to me. I was in Australia, sitting down in a meditation hall in the middle of the somewhere in Australia in Perth, and suddenly I realized that there was a whole inner world. I traveled all outwards. I'd seen all the beautiful things, the sunshine, the great sunsets, the beaches, all of these beautiful things we all want to see, like we have them on our bucket list. Um, but when I sat there, that's where the light shone. That's where it turned on. And that's from that moment onward, that's all I've ever been interested in. Is like when you see that for yourself, not because somebody else has told you or you've imagined it or you think it's a nice concept, but you've actually seen it and recognized it for yourself. And then I guess it becomes like a magnet. It did for me anyway. And that magnet has pulled me in many different directions. So the first direction it pulled me was to finish my travels. So I traveled for another couple of years, and then it pulled me into becoming a Buddhist monk. And that journey, I was a Buddhist monk for around, I don't know, 15 years. And there was no debating about it. I didn't even really research it that much. It was what we say in English, a calling, it's just a deep, had to do it type of thing. I really didn't know what I was getting involved with. I knew about meditation. But it's also where I recognized the true power. And the true power for me was not inside me, or inside or outside of me. It was what is. It is right here, right now, and always has been, and always will be, no matter what goes on, no matter what the external world is, no matter what I feel or think or do. And of course, there's been different ups and downs with that, and the monastic life is pretty tough. Like we were just talking about what time we get up in the morning. I used to get up every morning, 4:30, meditate, and then 3 months of the year go on retreat, silent retreat. So this time of the year in the northern hemisphere, it's the winter, and the winter draws you inwards. It's a very confusing time of the year when you're working flat out. Like many of my clients are all flat out already. We've started, and but nature is doing the opposite. Nature is going inwards, and things are dying, so that in spring we can have our lovely flowers and plants and all of that. So we also need time for this. We need time to pause and reflect. And I've been very fortunate in my life to have a lot of periods of that. And so now I help others in a way recognize this for themselves. Primarily I'm a leadership coach now, and I'm a coaching supervisor, which means I enable other coaches to do what I do, and for them to become brilliant coaches. And really, but it's this focus on self-awareness and not knowing, not having all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I'd like to. I've got a personality that's interested in that. You know, I've got my personality when I was younger was a computer geek. Very interested in all that technology. I went on to study. Like AI is very funky now. It's the big thing. I studied it 30 years ago. Uh, um, and that was my driving force in a way, because to make computers like humans, you had to understand yourself. So it started me on this inward journey, actually. Before I started traveling, I was already starting to think about, oh, so if I want to make a computer like this, how do I do that? You know?
Very interesting. And so where I would love to go with this, because that's really interesting that you were already thinking towards AI, did you say 30 years ago?
About 30 years ago, yeah.
Wow, interesting to be thinking like that because I'm not a technical person. And I remember in junior high, I had, because I was in one of the honors classes, they gave us time on the few computers that our school had. And I remember giving away the time. I simply wasn't interested. It wasn't until I found uses for the computer that I got really interested in it. And now I'm starting to understand AI in a way that is really fascinating to me, in a way that pulls, these wonderful ideas together and synchronicities and helps put the history behind it. So thank you for the early work you did and for getting us to this place of curiosity where I feel my work is, and that's interesting that I said it that way, is that you said when you see it, when you see your words, I believe, or when you see, would you remind me what it is that you said when you see it?
Yes. When you when
That's
you
the
when you
transformational moment. So I want, if you could um, tell that again in those words, and then I would like to share um, a reflection on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is the limitation of language, like, and it's difficult because what we're talking about, it doesn't have a name. Awareness itself does not have a name. It doesn't have any set of conditions that go with it. We sometimes we use the word unconditioned. So when I say see it, it's a sort of it's a pointing out. It's saying here it is, recognize. So we're talking about recognizing it for yourself. And so it's beyond the peace that we are all searching for is a recognition. It's not a cognitive capacity. It's not one you can think your way to or get. If you could get it, it would be being sold in the supermarkets right now. You'd be
Nice.
able to buy it as a commodity. But as far as I've seen, it's not that because you are it. You are this. Uh, Light, this beauty, this truth, this goodness, however you want to describe it. These are limitations. These words in a way mean nothing because we tie them to concepts. And what I'm pointing to is beyond concepts, beyond, it's in the not knowing. So maybe that's the starting place. Does that help you, Patty?
Yes, no, I loved it, and I just wanted that clarification because in my
Yeah,
experience, now that I've started on this path and I made a connection through the door of neuroplasticity, through the
yeah.
understanding that we can alter our thoughts and not just alter our thoughts, but with those thoughts, alter our body chemistry. And if we can alter our body chemistry and how we feel, that feeling is what got me to that recognition. So I have now found that recognition. That doesn't go away, right? That understanding of who we are in every cell of our being, that understanding that every cell in our body contains the Tao, contains the Holy Spirit, contains nature's abundance. And
Mhm.
every cell in our being wants us to be healthy and alive and to be at our best. That is a recognition. And I liked your word. I've been calling it an understanding. And
Mm.
as more and more of us start to see that dimension and start to see and feel and know and recognize, I think we can bring a lot more peace to the world because to me, this is the evolution of the human us, all of us, towards peace, and it has to start inside of us.
Yes. And yeah, and peace is here. This is it.
Mm, I
The
love
pe
it.
the peace that we're looking for is is closer than our nose, and we can't get away from it. We think that we can, Well, we can't. It's always available to anybody at any time. All it takes is the willingness to, as you say, stop, look at your body, look at your feelings, and follow them. And if you
Mm,
follow them far enough, yeah, and you'll recognize that there's nothing there. I mean, science says it itself. Whether you go out towards the stars or inwards towards yourselves, at some point you recognize, you see that there's nothing there.
mm.
And that's where peace is.
Amazing understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, yeah, it is
Fear
really.
dissolves. It's where
It,
fear dissolves because there's nothing left to fear.
no, there's nothing left to fear. And yet, our bodies, as you said, are set up for fear. And they will respond in that way. They will respond in that way. The heart rate can go up. You see something scary, or you watch something on TV. You watch a program, and or you're walking along the road and something traumatic happens, or some world event happens, and it's not even in your country. It's somewhere else. It can send ripples through our body. And it's also why it's so helpful to understand how our bodies work, so that we can make sense of it. you know, you know, being able to decipher, the difference between fear and excitement.
And
But
also understanding that we can take in that information and we can let it flow past us. We can grab onto it. We can make up our own stories. We can create fear for our future self, or we can process the information, choose to do the best we can do with it and let it go. And
yeah,
I see more and more an openness to those clients that I'm talking to about the same thing, an
yeah,
openness to reconsider their belief system, an openness to reconsider their values, an openness to reconsider how they show up in the world and how they want to feel, and getting back in
mm,
touch with the fact that they may want a laundry list of things in 2025, most of which is purchased with a credit card, and
mm,
none of it's going to help them feel the way they want to feel in their lives.
mm. No, and it's kind of amazing, really, because I lived as a Buddhist monk. I gave up money. I renounced. They call it a renunciant. So I lived without money for 15 years. My whole body was actually built on the gifts of others, because I had a begging bowl. I don't operate like that now, but in the past I did. And so, I'd stand on the street corner with my begging bowl, no sign, no nothing, just my begging bowl, and wait and see if people put food in my bowl. If they put food in my bowl, I ate. If they didn't, I didn't get it. I didn't do that every day, but I did it as a practice. And within in the monastery, people brought food. So it's quite people say, oh, I can't live without money. I mean, it's true in a way. The monastery had to have money as well. I mean, yeah, but as a way of exploring, the impact of money, what that does to you. It was a very good lesson. Now I've gone the other way. Now I have to earn a living. And what does that look like? Because, as a monk, you don't really self-promote. You don't go out and really, you might give a talk, or give a retreat or something like that. But in the business world, and the people I'm coaching, the CEOs and the leaders, they're required to go out and say, I've got a company, I've got this product, and I'm meeting them in that. And what's so very interesting is that there's a connection between those two things, between being a monk, and having no money, and facing the world outwards. And that's the one of moderation. Like you said it there really clearly, about the credit card. Like, how do you moderate your behavior? Like renunciation, it doesn't really work for me, but moderating does, because moderating is about choice. You,
Awareness. It's just simply
exactly.
awareness. And
Awareness.
even things that, you know, I've done in the past 15 years. I think back,
Yeah.
think, wow, I'm so glad I know better, so I do better. And I believe Maya Angelou who said that,
Yeah.
and I've come to realize, I know we're all over the place, but I'm having so much fun with this. I've come to realize in my path that forgiveness has been a really big thing. And
Yes.
that in the end, the only person I have felt any need to forgive has been myself.
Oh, so beautiful.
over again, I've had
Yeah,
to say, it's okay, you know better, and now
yeah,
do better, and to hold
yes,
yourself accountable to that. And that is part of the reason I'm on this really deep dive into learning everything I can. Earlier, you said, I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I
yeah,
want to spend the rest of my life being
yeah,
curious and exploring
yes,
this world that I believe exists in our DNA, in our subconscious, in our bodies. And it has made life absolutely magical.
yes, indeed. It's funny when you say that, I think about play, like my brand is called Playful Monk,
Yeah.
and that's really it, that curiosity, that engagement, that spark, that being with the body, that's play. And when I joined the monastery, I was lucky enough to start running these family camps, and this is where I watched kids play, really play and have fun and give them permission to play. And that's it. You see that, and that's lifelong learning. Kids are endlessly curious. If it starts off with a foot and then an arm and then a book and then it goes on. And if we can, continue with that curiosity through life, in terms of whatever it is, education, our jobs, life itself, how rich it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's extraordinary. That during the about a month ago, I was just on my holidays during the festive period, and I'm English. I live in the Netherlands, and I live in a very unique part of the Netherlands, which probably unique part of the world. It's on reclaimed land. It's the biggest reclaimed island in the world, and so it's was designed on a university drawing board town where I live, and so the whole of this land is only 50 years old. So I live 6 meters below sea level, and so any to get anywhere else, you sort of have to cross a dike. So we have a very and to go to the old land where I live, where we were visiting, sorry, we had to cross the dike, and the dike's about 45 miles long. So it's a massive dike. So I went away on holiday, crossed that dike, and then I was coming back. And as I was coming back across the dike, I suddenly realized I'm returning from the old land to the new land, right? And where I live on the new land, there's no history, there's no cultural influences, there's no social influences, there's nothing. How lucky I am to live in a place where that is the case. Like nothing's happened on this land other than they build the houses. 50 years ago, this was at the bottom of the sea and ships were floating over the top. And that's that curiosity and play. Like when you can bring that attitude to anything that you're doing, right?
Yes.
This is a new day, right? I don't have to be influenced by the past. I don't have to be into my own past thoughts about society's conditioning, all of that. Of course, we have the rules of society and all of those things. And it's about how we explore that, right? Rather than being chained to them, chained to our past, chained to our viewpoints, chained to what society says, chained to our culture, chained to the work situation, you know.
Yeah. Over and over again. And I'm learning this with those I'm teaching and those I'm coaching. And it's really powerful to realize how many times I get stuck in an old belief system, how many
Yeah,
times I have to rethink an old strategy and instead
yes,
get to play. I often say we are the writers and the directors and the leading, man or woman,
yeah,
this play that is our life. And
yes,
I've come to this place where I don't do chores, I don't do housekeeping. I beautify the space. I create, an intentional space wherever I'm at. And to me, that's fun. And it takes off all of the heavy garments of judgment because I've done that internal work, right? I've looked at all of it. And when triggers come up, I've come to this place where I absolutely embrace it. It may take me a day. Like the longest in the last 6 months has been something lingering negatively. It's been a day, and it was a big deal. But I got myself to rethink, to look at the opportunities, to get myself out of that way of thinking, and to realize how powerful it is that my thoughts are the only thing that have kept me from playing for the last 20 years. That
Yes.
yeah, I was having fun, I was still being creative, but man, I could be not that fun to be around. And I
Yeah.
just feel such an aliveness now that I understand how powerful my thoughts are in creating everything in my world.
Yeah. They're so strong, and especially if you believe that that's the only thing that you've got. If you've only got thoughts, if you've only got the rational mind, that's really tricky because that's the only possibility of seeing the world, you know.
And that's why
And
the feeling for me, um, until I started reconnecting, really
yes,
to sense it, because as an athlete, I was an athlete, which is what earned my scholarship to Stanford. I worked really hard because I wasn't the
yeah,
real athlete, I don't think, but I worked really hard. And I spent that time going inward there. So there's so many opportunities and just really having fun with understanding those triggers and getting really comfortable with laughing at myself. And that's why you being this playful monk, I just love it as that daily reminder that if we're going to do something, we can choose to do it in joy or we
yes,
complain about it. And the more we complain about it, the more we're going to create neural pathways in our mind that are going to lean us towards complaining. So
yes,
every complaint builds a deeper path into the forest. Every joy, every expression, every time we share something positive, that creates a more beautiful path into the forest. And that's the path I want to be on because we create a path. And I believe it wholeheartedly. We can get stuck in victimhood, right? We all have had terrible things. We all have had imperfect humans do something that hurt us. I've never
mm,
met someone that hasn't. And we can choose to create a division and start looking at the world as a victim, or we can choose to look at the world as the person that recovered through that tragedy, became the hero or heroine on our journey, and to build the neural pathways that support that success story and that skill.
yes.
And
Isn't
I,
that freeing?
it's so freeing. And what's really fun about this, and I know this is, I believe you and I have similar, ways that we are going about things. As more and more people awaken to that energy, that belief system that they have and how they show up in the world, I believe the more people will show up as their best self. And to me, that's when synergy happens. I don't have a conflict with anybody unless I'm not in a good place myself.
Mm,
I rarely have conflict unless there's something going on in me and I'm struggling with somebody else. Because generally, I surround myself with people who are mindfully intentional, right? They think
mm,
about the way their energy comes into a space and they honor other people's space and care. And I'm able to, in general, you know, be mindful about the energy I bring to others. And it's really fun.
wonderful, isn't it? What a
Yes,
wonderful way to live one's life. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
And so I believe when we each of us show up as our best, right? If I'm
yes.
my best, you're your best, we get to play together in the sandbox. Let's bring others into the sandbox. Let's help other people find that joy that's under the judgment. And
Yeah,
I think that's the way we get to evolve our human consciousness.
yeah, yeah. But that ability, to be with others, just how they are, by understanding yourself fully is such a gift. It
Mhm.
really is such a gift, and
So
it's
much
just
more
a
empathy. I can have so much more empathy understanding that they are suffering. I try
yes,
not to say, I try not to be too blunt, like you understand if you just flip that on its head, you wouldn't feel that way at all.
yeah,
You looked at
yeah,
this, and I have found, if I am completely honest, that I often do that. And so I've found that the people around me will wait until they're ready to hear the flip side. They
Yes.
look for it themselves. If they can't find it, then I get the phone call and say, okay, 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 I need your help. How do I turn this around? This is so bad and I can't see an upside. And it's so much fun to help them find the upside
Yeah. Yeah.
because there always is something. There's always an upside.
Yeah. I found Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication very helpful for this. That you can have that conversation in your head. You can sort of complain and whine and all the rest of it, but you can translate it into something that's actually useful. Not only useful, but it connects. It connects with others. But Marshall Rosenberg's approach is fact, feeling, need and request. So it's not demand about the situation. It's just about like, this is what's going on for me, you know, and this is my request. And then they might say, well, that's not mine. And then you can also interpret that as through the same system until you do find that. And the idea is that you don't hold on to the original thing that you're wanting. It's not a demand that it happens. And that has been so powerful for me in conversations, because then I don't have to get rid of my negative thoughts. All I have to do is just recognize that that's how they are right now. Yeah. And then see them through a different lens.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I
Yeah.
have that book. It was recommended by a beautiful friend of mine. So I will bring that back out because I haven't looked at it for a while. And
Yeah.
that is where it's powerful, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have to believe all of our thoughts.
No, but we just have to know them.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's why I love the work by Wayne Dyer. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
wonderful writers out there that are doing this beautiful work. And so I want to make sure that anyone who's listening has your information. So we'll include that in the notes.
Okay.
And just to continue, I can see that you help leaders find their best selves, and I appreciate the work you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Patsy. I really appreciate it.
Joy. I
It's
really
lovely to
appreciate
be
your
with
time. And I'm going to just stop recording.
you. Okay.